guys, welcome back to the podcast. I am your host, Monica Velasquez for Live for the Journey, and we are with
Nia. I'm a freshman and I'm in graphic design.
So the reason for this podcast is I interviewed a senior about his journey with Christ, his spiritual journey, and I interviewed two chaplains, or pastoral chaplains, and what it is to live spiritually. And so, coming that you are a freshman, you go to UMHB, I wanted to ask you how your spiritual journey with Jesus has been.
Wow. So, do you want to just know, like, this year, or, like, just my story?
When did you encounter the Lord? Like,
all right.
Full on.
All right, full on.
Full on, yeah.
All right. So, when I was a freshman in high school, I went to a Christian school from kindergarten to 12th grade, so 13 years, a long time. Mm-hmm. But I had a class called Life and Teachings of Jesus Christ, and in that class, it was towards like the end of the year, maybe like March or April, our teacher had us read all of John, because we were going to write a paper about it. And so in class, we were reading all of John. It took 2 classes because, it's a big book. Mm-hmm. And the class day that we finished it, I remember I was like, wow, John is, like, so cool. Like, Jesus is so cool. Just, like, reading, like, everything he's done, because I've never really read it all before. Mm-hmm. And when I went home, I was listening to a lot of Christian songs, and I was in my room, and I literally felt the presence of God. Mm-hmm. Like, I felt it. And I was like, okay, that's the presence of God. Like, that's amazing. It was like a tiny drop from heaven just, like, came down. It was literally amazing. And then the next day, I was just listening to more music and just worshiping God in my room, and I felt his presence again. And I was like, okay, this is definitely, like, what God wants me to do. Mm-hmm. And so I never really actually told people about that until, like, months later. But that was my first encounter with him, and that was, like, the stepping stone leading into more of how I furthered my relationship with God.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think the hardest part did you go through? Since you went to a Christian school, there was no, like, I guess, outside influence, or was there for you?
I would say there wasn't really an outside influence, but through my whole life, like, I accepted God when I was, like, 9, but, like, I never really understood who God was and what it meant to have a relationship with him versus just, like, believing that he's real. Because demons believe that he's real, Satan believes that he's real, but are they redeemed? Are they saved? No.
No. Exact opposite.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that was one thing that me and Alex touched on, because his story was a little like he went to this high school and it was like, everyone, there's Muslims, there's atheists, there's all these things, and he felt like the Lord was testing him in that. And for me personally, I grew up Catholic, so when I heard that Catholic and Christians are different, I thought it was all the same thing. Right. So it was a very experience. Yeah. And for me personally, I was like, okay, I'm at my wit's end, so I need God. And that was always my mindset before. Like, okay, you need God when things go bad. When things are good, whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that's kind of what me and him touched on the culture. Because have you ever had someone be like, oh, you're a Christian thing?
I guess in college a little bit.
A little bit?
Just because my school, I was really in a bubble, and I knew that.
Yeah.
So I knew that going into college, I knew that it was going to be a lot different. Mm-hmm. And so coming here, because at my school, I wasn't like a saint or anything. I was a good person. But no one ever was like, oh my gosh, Nia, like, you compared to somebody else, you're just, like, so amazing. But, like, coming here, a lot of my friends, especially people I made friends in the beginning, they were all like, oh my gosh, she doesn't do this, she doesn't do that. Like,
yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah.
And so they didn't challenge me to be like a better person. So
yeah, it's kind of like, for me, it was like okay, this is what I always did back then before, and now it's like a transition period, and it's like you really see who's your friend and who isn't. Yeah. And so coming from your perspective, did you have any challenges even within just the community that you felt like maybe this isn't like where Christ wants me to be? If that makes sense.
Not in high school. In college.
In college.
For sure.
College.
Yeah. The friends that I made, they're not bad people, but they just never challenged me to pursue Christ well. And in the beginning of October, God was like, okay, that's it.
Yeah.
And I went to, it's called The Well. It's at the First Baptist Belton.
Mm-hmm.
It's Wednesdays at 7. People, you guys should go. It's really good. But I went and I really did feel his, like, I just felt him, and I was just worshiping him. I was like, this is where God wants me to be. And I'd strayed so far from that, like, during the few months that I was at college. And now I'm in a lot better of a place in prioritizing, like, knowing who to be friends with, who to not be friends with, like, just spending more time with God and seeing, like, where he wants me. Just, yeah.
Yeah. Have you, being at UMHB, do you feel like you have outlets that are, you trust that Christ is with them, or that they are trying to represent Christ, not just religion?
Absolutely. There's a friend of mine, she's one of my best friends, and I actually called her like a week ago, and she's absolutely amazing. She always pushes me in my faith. Whenever I talk with her, she'll always remind me more of, like, God and how much he has impacted her life. And she's had a difficult life compared to most, and, like, seeing her faith and how much she's been in God. And she went to a public school and a high school, and, like, seeing her the way she is, I'm like, I don't know how you, like, do that. But she's literally an inspiration to me, and I love her so much. So, yeah, I definitely have people like that.
Yeah, I think the community that you have around you is definitely something that is very impactful. And it's, like, very hard when you see something only being done a certain way, and when you see something that's different, it's easy for people to be like, that's wrong. Yeah. That makes sense. So for me personally, coming into, like, oh, I don't want to be Catholic anymore, it was, like, kind of taking away my sense of identity. And it's like, yeah, because your identity is rooted in something that will not, it's not the truth. That makes sense. So it is something that I think a lot of people are struggling with, because I think a lot of people, like you said, believe in God, but so do demons. And there's a difference in being a child of God and knowing that there is a God, if that makes sense. Because I went into that turmoil of, like, well, yeah, God's there, but I was very far from him. So it's like, yeah, he's there, but you're not experiencing, I guess, a good or free life because you are doing what you want, if that makes sense. And another thing is the culture, even right now with Christianity, you can't always go to a church and be like, this is the representation of Christ, because people from the church have hurt other people. That makes sense. And I think that's why this is important for people our age to know, like, it's really easy to look at something and be like, okay, the whole thing is corrupt. But I would say, challenge people to say, to look at it as humans are imperfect. There's faultiness in us. That, I think, across the board can be seen. So there is there's a creator that wants to help us to love each other more. And it's very easy for us to be like, well, if the representation if it's representing this, I don't want it. And that was my issue for a long time. I was like, okay, well, Christians are racist. They hate the LGBT community. They hate everyone. And to a certain extent, it's true, because their heart isn't really with the Lord. If that makes sense. Like, there is a lot of hatred, but it isn't the Lord. It's a mask. If that makes sense. Have you dealt with anything like that, or have you seen maybe someone falsely representing Christ and you were like, maybe not? Yeah.
People at my high school, like the more popular people, they had, like, good relationships with God, but also they really were hating people like that. They were hating people in the community. They were sometimes even being racist, and I'll look at that and I'll be like, is that what Christ is calling us to do? Because really it isn't, which is why I wasn't really friends with them.
Yeah. I just find it, like, interesting how we as humans, we can fall easily into that mindset of, like, oh, well, I'm better because I don't do this or I don't do that, if that makes sense. And that's human nature, you know what I mean? And I think for someone on their spiritual journey, it's easy for them to be like, I just want to be in the physical, if that makes sense. Like in not thinking of like actual spirituality, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And what would you say to someone who's on the fence of learning about God? I would just say that in the beginning.
I think I believe that God is the one who has to really instill that fire in you to learn more about him. I was actually learning about this at the well yesterday because it's a Thursday today. And he was the pastor was saying that like you can't change your heart, but that God can change your heart, but that you can like prepare your heart by praying and by always being humble and reading his word and understanding more of where like he wants you. So just to prepare yourself. But I think that I believe that God is real for sure. But I think it's very like you should definitely try to learn about him because if you read the Bible, like God's ideals are very, very good.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
And like even people who like don't believe in God, like people who know a lot about a lot of stuff will say like the Bible has like some really good like moral stuff. And so I think even if you don't want to be a Christian, that it's important to read it because it's very valuable, like whether you are a Christian or not.
Yeah. Do you think it's becoming harder for people to want to accept God because of everything that's happening politically and culturally, or do you think that the Lord can knock on anyone's door and they hear it?
I believe you can knock on anyone's door, but we also have to open it.
Yeah.
And also, I think that just as a society, we just want to be more free. We want to be in control of our lives, and we want to be able to do whatever we want. And whenever people like think of God, they just think of him as like a restricting God. Oh, he doesn't want me to do this. Oh, but I want to do this. The reason that he's setting parameters is because he knows that when you like surpass them, it's not going to benefit you. No. It's not going to be good for you. Like really, it's not.
Yeah.
And so that's why he sets those. And once you like truly realize that and that God only wants good for you, you can let him control your life because he's going to manage it way better than you would.
Yeah, so. It's like someone already knows. Someone can see, God is outside of time, so he can see what this is going to lead to.
Exactly.
And it's like, I think that's what the issue is with a lot of people who have broken homes because if they have a father that they're supposed to look up to and they've done these horrible things, they've hurt their children, that's how they're going to view God.
Yeah.
And that's how they're going to see, okay, if you did this, then God's going to do this. Because a lot of, going back to the church, the mindset of culturally, not actually biblically, but it's like, okay, you have to do this, do this, do this. There's no love, there's no connection, there's no conversation. It's just anger. And if you're not doing this right, then you're not good enough, and this and this and that. Yeah. And that's the part of the church culture that is not representing Christ, because we are his children, and the way that our parents are in, as we grow up with them, in a way, if we're thinking about it or not, they structure how we view God. If that makes sense. So for me, I never knew my father, so knowing God, it's like, okay, when are you gonna leave? That's my mindset. So for a lot of people, I feel like it's easy for them to be like, when is God gonna leave? When is this gonna go bad? When is this and this and this? And then we also just think about ourselves a lot. Yeah. It's true.
We're just selfish.
Yeah.
That's what kind of.
And it's like, for someone, I think, trying to understand the spiritual journey with Christ. Oh my gosh, my words. Their spiritual journey, and learning that Christ is who I believe they should be following, is you have to be willing, like you said. You have to open the door, because you can be angry all you want, you can be bitter all you want, but it doesn't change anything, if that makes sense. It's like, my friend used to say, hate is like drinking a vial of poison and expecting it to hurt the other person.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Man, never thought of it like that.
We were like in 8th grade.
Whoa.
Yeah, and so now that came back to me as like with Christ, he's like, it really just hurts you. And it's like, it's not a like, oh, you should do this. No, just give it a chance. I would say.
Yeah.
And I say like, oh my gosh, what is wrong with my words?
Okay.
Has the Lord tested you in any area, or is it more college and friendship? Sorry.
My sophomore year, there was a lot of like weird stuff that happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And well, not necessarily to me, but to people that I cared about, so it affected me.
Mm-hmm.
And through all of it, I just stayed in God. And looking back, I'm like, the only reason that I was able to stay sane was because I was with him.
Yeah.
And I feel like you said, college was definitely a test for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where God wants me to be, like, you're gonna be surrounded by people who don't exactly, put me first.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
Mm-hmm.
And so, at first I was falling, and then he was like, okay, well, so now
You don't play. He's like,
literally, he's like, that's it, boom.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I hear you.
Yeah, it's crazy how clouded, like for me personally, this semester's been really hard and it's been really cloudy because it's like everything from politics to family life to school, it's a lot. Like and that's why your community matters so much. Who you're around, the majority of the time, is like, it's true. Like iron sharpens iron. Like it's very true.
Yeah.
And it's like, in the beginning, when I came to UMHB, I was very angry, very hateful. I didn't want to talk to people. And now I'm like, okay, the Lord has made me to where, okay, they're angry, they're bitter. You know how that feels like. You know they don't really want to be that way. So love them, you know. And for a lot of people, they're like, well, if they didn't do nothing for, it's very transactional. If they didn't do nothing for me, why would I do something for them? And I'm seeing that a lot more, like just in my workspace and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, that's so like, it's not good. You know what I mean? Like just seeing someone as a transaction. Yeah. So I would say spiritually just walking and just knowing that it isn't, like you said, like a rule book or a God that's like, do this, or if not, I hate you. It's do this because I love you, if that makes sense. And having those maybe not good relationships with parents or things that you have went through, the Lord literally wants to heal you from that. That makes sense.
And he wants to use that for your good.
Yeah.
Like he really does.
And it's like, it's just so hard with culture because like I get caught up in it. Sometimes I'm like, oh, okay, I went through this very prideful what's it called, mindset for a minute there, and the Lord, like you said, he's like, stop, we're done with this. Yeah. And it's like, oh gosh. So that's why I've been reading in Matthew, pray for your enemies, and love your enemies, because you don't really know what they're battling with. Yes, they're angry and they're bitter at you, but there's something that they're battling with. And I think that's the very important thing about God. He's a personal God. He's a relatable. He made us so he understands. Yeah, you know. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that you think has helped you on your journey? Is it just your community and?
Through all of 2023. So part of my part of my junior, part of my senior year, I had an incredible teacher. His name is Mr. Colley. He taught me so much about the Bible. And now when I'm like reading, it's like crazy to think like a few years ago compared to now, like how much I truly now know about the Bible and about God. And I try to live by those virtues and remember those virtues like every single day when I'm going about life, and it literally just changes your perspective, like how you see stuff. And so yeah, he definitely helped me. And I'm trying to think of anybody else, even my mom too, because she's always had a good relationship with God. And so when I started to like push my relationship with God more, she started to increase. And so we started like kind of motivating each other a little bit. And now seeing the way she is now, it's just like, she's amazing. And so, yeah.
That's awesome. What else? Do you have any advice for someone who is trying to strengthen their relationship with God. Maybe they grew up in the church, they know about him, but they don't really know him personally.
Okay. I would recommend read John. And I'm not just saying that because of what happened to me. Like, other people even say, like, read John. It's such a good book.
There's something about John.
It's something about John, yeah. And then also, I would pray about it, too. And read, in Matthew, it tells you, I think it's Matthew 6, Matthew 5? It tells you how to pray.
Oh, yeah.
Praying is so important when it comes to just your life with God. Praying is so important. I've been learning about it at the Well because they've been prioritizing praying. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, just pray, read your Bible, and try to seek out people who know God, who might be able to, like, advise you so that they can help you, like, for where you want to go. Because I'm just a freshman. I'm 18. People who are, like, way older have, like, so much more experience in their life, and so they'll be able to tell you, like, what you need to do.
How do you feel like you'll grow spiritually with God at UMHB for the next 3 years?
Yeah, 3 years, man. I think, I think I'll grow in even more community, and that I'll abide by God more, because I am not perfect, and I definitely, like, lately I haven't really been in the Word and stuff, and so I think that I hope that I do improve on reading His Word and living by His principles, and I also want to be memorizing like the Bible, not just because I want to sound smart, but like literally so that it can be in my heart, so I can remember it and abide by it like every single day.
Yeah. Are you excited for what the future holds?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, I'm literally, like, I'm only 18. Like, there's so much more of my life. Like, it's exciting, like, to see, like, what God it's gonna do. Like,
yeah, he's, like, writing a story. Like,
yeah.
It's already written before you were even born, girl.
Exactly. It's just so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find that very, like with God, life just is better. Even though it's hard. Even though, like, it like, finals week sucks. Family things, like, bad things, you know, like, suffering. It is hard. We're not going to sit here and be like, oh, la-di-da-da. Like, no. This is a battle. This is a spiritual battle. And that's why I think spiritual life is very important, because I remember before Christ, I was spiritually dead. And when I came to Christ, I felt, I guess, the veil, the veil being lifted. Yeah. And it's like, it's real. It's crazy, like, awesome. But it does get hard. And that's the thing that I think maybe a lot of people are afraid of, because I hate change. No, it does not go together.
Me too.
Like, and with the Lord, you're constantly denying yourself. That like, you're denying what you want to do, and it's not that you're not gonna want to do things that the Lord's like, yeah, do it, but it's like things that the Lord knows are gonna hurt you, even that aren't necessarily sinful. Things that you can idolize, things that you can put above God, is something that He will definitely be like, nope. And it's gonna hurt, but it's like, going back, I saw this, like, falling is like when you're a baby and you're learning how to walk. You're gonna fall. That makes sense. But you're growing. You're a child. You have to be spiritually mature. So before God, without being spiritually mature, I felt it. I felt like there was an emptiness. There was a hole there. Maybe a lot of you feel that way. And I'm telling you, there's someone there's a Jesus-sized hole in your heart.
Exactly.
And there's God. You know what I mean? And it's like, not to be, this is a Christian university, but also this is my personal experience, this is Nia's personal experience, this is Alex's personal experience, and what we've all said is relationship. It's not religion, because we can all fall into that religion mindset. We are humans, like you said, we're like, okay, this is what works, do it, and then something hard happens and we're like, why isn't it working? You know? And it's like, actually, God is always working, but sometimes it's gonna hurt you, so you don't become something that you were never supposed to be. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I have a few things to add, because that's, like, really, really cool. So I was reading in one of the epistles of Paul Paul's writing about how there's like a thorn in him, and like how he was praying to God for God to remove it, and he's like, my grace, my mercy is gonna surpass that thorn. And hardships, because of what Adam and Eve did, like hardships are gonna be in the world. We can't blame God for our hardships. God will always try to use those hardships for our good, and so all he's doing is pruning us so that we can bear good fruit for God. And so I want to encourage anybody who's going through something, because try to think from God's perspective, because I know it can be difficult, but he really does want something amazing to come out of anything that you might be going through, and it will be amazing if you let him.
I think that's like you said, open the door. Open the door, I promise you.
Oh, one thing. What I remembered, I think I said this to one of my friends, and they're like, wow, I never realized that. But I heard it from a podcast. Like, seasons are meant for a reason, and if you don't let God work through those seasons will become cycles.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's yeah. That hit me somewhere. Yeah, it's real though. Like, following the Lord, it's like you're gonna see yourself for what your desires really were, and positioning yourself for the Lord to change you. It's good. That makes sense. And people may be like, well, I don't want to change. I don't want this. I don't want that. We all want love. We are designed for love, and the world's view on love is not God's love, because I can't love Nia well and let her do whatever she wants, and it hurts her in the long run. Even though I can't see it right now, even though it looks like fun, it's not going to lead to anything but death at the end of the day. And so I think with the fruits that you're referring to, the fruits of the Spirit, they are always something that we have to grow on. Like, for me, I was like, okay, I figured this out, blah, blah, blah. Nope. The Lord was like, ma'am, you don't even know the minuscule of this. And I thought I knew it all. So it's like, with that too, just coming to the Lord and being like, okay, I don't understand. I want to understand. And if this is what I'm supposed to do, can you help me? And he'd be like, I got you, fam. And it's like, it's really fun on how, like, just seeing how you grow up and grow with the Lord more, and just going back and be like, oh wow, I learned something from that. Like I got transformed. And so yeah, did I already ask you everything?
You might have, I don't know.
What yeah, I asked you that. What is your advice to believers?
To believers. To keep fighting the good fight. I know it can be difficult sometimes when the world around you is like, with temptation, just like flee from it. Literally flee from it. It's in the Bible, flee from it. If you think that TikTok's addicting, delete it. I deleted TikTok a long time ago, like years ago, because I just couldn't do it. Delete social media if you have to. Look at your life and see what is tempting you, and just try to cut it off, because that's gonna help you so much to keep fighting the good fight. And also try to lean on people who are also believers, because community is so important. That's why he created Eve, because he knew that Adam couldn't be alone. Community is so important, and God wants that for you. So yeah.